Catus Maximus here, this time with a review of the Amerex B456 10-pound rated ABC dry fire extinguisher. I don't think I've done enough videos about safety equipment. I do a lot of videos about tools, but a fire extinguisher really is a very recommended piece of safety equipment. They do tend to run quite a bit of money. This is an American-made Amerex, and retail they're like $100, or about $10 a pound. The reason I recommend a much higher quality, at least a 5-pound, and more so a 10-pound, they even make these in 20-pound, is because the little 2.5-pound ones just don't have quite enough extinguishment if you happen to have a little bit of a larger fire or a more intense one, or one that you haven't noticed for a little bit. When it comes to fire extinguisher, the more the merrier really is true. Another thing to note is the valving on the larger, more professional, I shouldn't say professional because they're all supposed to put out fires, but cheaper brands like Kitty and some other brands, they're just not as high quality, especially the light ones that are like sold at Walmart. The valve systems just aren't super reliable, and you really want to have something that you can trust. One thing of note is that you really should have a fire extinguisher recharged whenever it's been used. And I don't know if enough people realize that, but if a fire extinguisher has been used, the powder will get up into the valve and it will slowly leak out whatever pressure it has left. So it really needs to be serviced. It only usually costs like 20 or 30 bucks to get it serviced. And there's places in just about every town. You just look up, fire safety equipment, and those same places can recharge these. And of course, you stand about 10 feet away, 3 meters or 3 yards away, and aim at the base of the fire. A lot of mistakes is made when you use them to try to put out the flames rather than the base of the fire, where the source of all the heat and the coals. How these dry fire extinguishers work is they essentially cover and smother, and all the heat kind of melts it into a mat. That's why it ends up working on liquids, because the powder kind of emulsifies with the liquid, and then the heat of the fire itself kind of glazes it. Not really a glass, but it melts it together, and that's how it puts out the fire, and it really is pretty effective. Another thing to note, the weight of the fire extinguishers is rated by the actual dry weight of the powder that's inside. So this extinguisher weighs about 18 pounds, but there's 18 pounds of can and valving on it, and with 10 pounds of extinguishant in it. There's also a wide variety. There's, of course, old school water ones. There are ones that are carbon dioxide fire extinguishers, etc. A couple safety notes about these is fire extinguishers do have special rated fire extinguisher, here we go, fire extinguisher booster hose. And if you ever have a damaged hose on one, you do want to replace it with another one of equivalent rating. These have a 500 Psi burst rating. And another big safety note, don't ever use a fire extinguisher or really handle one that's had any kind of significant damage or is rusty. The big deal about these and how they blow out all that powder in an aggressive fashion, as we can see, well, you can almost see, but they're charged at 195 psi. So 200 psi, they're under a huge amount of pressure. I believe they're charged with nitrogen. And so you really need to respect them. You don't want to have them fall and potentially break the head off or anything. It would shoot like a missile if you broke the head off of one of these. I'm sure there are YouTube videos about that. And most of these, we can see where they have like an option for a little fork, or there is a post that you can hang it from, and it's built right into the head of the extinguisher. The other thing is they always tell you to check them regularly just to make sure you're not leaking down pressure. And you generally want to have them discharged, or not discharged, but serviced after 10 years. That isn't to say that if you have an old fire extinguisher that still has pressure in the green, that would be absolutely fine to use in a case of a fire. But generally speaking, after 10 years, you do want to have them serviced. Anyway, I wanted to do a review of an important shop tool, a fire extinguisher, and recommend really people get bigger ones, because these things, you don't really hopefully you never have a need to use a fire extinguisher. And when you have a nice one, when you go camping or anything like that, it's nice to have around. And is too many times an often ignored tool. And when it comes to things like fire safety, definitely get a quality one, something you really know you can count on when it comes to the appropriate situation. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.